Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a journey like no other. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast,
your go-to destination for a unique blend of recovery and discovery.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Mark. And in this podcast, we will endeavor to create a safe and uplifting space for our guests and listeners to share their stories with sincerity and a touch of humor.
Remember, we are not a Glum Lot. The Glum Lot Podcast is more than just a source of entertainment. It's a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, recovery is possible. Every story we share carries the power to inspire positive change.
So buckle up, get ready to listen, and join us in discovering the strength that lies within every individual's journey. This is the Glum Lot Podcast, where humor meets hope. Well, welcome to the podcast, Brett.
Thank
you. Today we are recording podcast episode number 19.
Number 19.
Yep. Hey, you know what else I wanted to mention is that we just started an Instagram account.
Insta?
I don't really know Instagram well, but I'm attempting to post a couple things on there.
Yeah, you did well.
So, did I? You saw it? Oh, wow. You and two other people.
And
nice.
I even went on Insta and created a profile myself.
Fantastic.
And I named myself Not a Glum 1.
Oh, that's perfect.
So that
makes me not a glum 2.
And you are a number 2.
Yeah. Wow.
Ouch.
So, if you're out there and you use Instagram, look us up, the Glum Lot Podcast.
Yeah, and if I can just throw it out there, if somebody has some real good experience with that and really kind of wants to help us out, we'd love some ideas.
Help us, please.
Please, sir.
We're raising our hand. This is our first Instagram.
Oh, speaking of raising hands,
yeah.
We've talked about it before, how incredibly difficult it is to ask another guy or another gal to be our sponsor.
Yeah,
right?
It's daunting. It literally feels like asking someone out on a date.
Yeah.
Because the rejection, you're just like, oh my God, what if they say no?
And I'll tell you, whenever Mark brings this up, he does the perfect visual. It's too bad you can't see it on here because he just hangs his head down, he looks down at his feet. And
you're kicking the dirt.
Oh,
would you be my sponsor?
Yeah.
And the person's like, no.
Yeah.
Like, no.
And they better not say no.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
I'll tell you, in the program, people are very kind to newcomers. And if somebody does say no, they're going to have a good explanation.
Yeah. And they probably have somebody else in mind for you.
Yeah. And they may just say, you know what, I'm sponsoring like 5 people right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to shortchange you.
Yeah.
But look to so-and-so.
Yep.
Or, for whatever reason, they may say, I'm actually moving or, you never know. But don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, definitely not. And I will tell you this. It is important to have, we think we can do this all ourselves. We've proven that we can't. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
So, but if you don't have a sponsor, and this is speaking to AA, okay?
Yes.
I know there's other people that are doing other things, and your journey is your journey. But our experience is with AA. But what we learned is if you don't have a sponsor, your addiction will gladly sponsor you.
Yeah, so if you think you can get by with sponsoring yourself, or, well, the group is my sponsor.
Mm-hmm. That just saying that elicits an uncomfortable laugh.
Yeah, early in recovery, it doesn't work like that. And it's so important for somebody to spend, I always thought of it as like, if the meetings are the performance,
yes,
then the sponsor is your backstage guy.
Yeah.
And he's going to go, well, because you're going to have questions. You're going to say, in fact, one of the questions I had early on was people said, don't think, don't drink, go to meetings.
Go to meetings.
And then I see this sign up at the very, they put the 5 signs up on the desk.
Yeah.
One says, think, think, think.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, which is it?
Right.
And the sponsor had to explain that to me. You think through the drink, you pause and you think about where your reaction is going to come from, so you can correct it. So it's good to start thinking and not reacting.
Yeah.
But the don't think, don't drink, go to meetings means don't sit there and overthink this trying to stop drinking thing.
Well, we can get caught into that. We can start off with a responsor. Yeah. Well, we end up doing that, but we can start off with a sponsor, and then all of a sudden, I'm getting it. And then we start to sponsor ourselves.
Yeah, it never works.
No, it just does
never.
not.
Bad scene. Because what you're actually doing is, like you say, you're asking your addiction to sponsor you.
Yep, and alcohol will indeed.
In fact, there's somebody...
I wasn't finished.
I'm sorry.
Gosh, I had this awesome thought.
I think you need a sponsor, but go ahead.
Yeah, probably. But alcohol, it definitely will, without a doubt, stand in the place of a real sponsor. And it will gladly gladly give you all the advice you need, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's not going to be pretty.
Thank
so.
you for letting me share that.
No
I
problem.
had to get it out.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Our guest today is a guy this guy has a great story. And he is for those of you who don't know how famous I am, I'm in a fantastic sober rock and roll band called the Ponytail James Band.
I'm going to see it tomorrow night.
Actually named after a guy that was in AA with us. He actually passed away, but he was the Leonard Skinnard to our band. You know? And our guest today is the lead guitarist of the band.
A local award-winning lead guitarist,
quite
too.
good and quite a smart guy.
Yes.
And we're very happy to have him. He's an awesome dude. Yeah. So let's welcome Dave.
Hey, Dave.
All right, Dave. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast.
Thank you.
And we're going to start out with your sobriety date.
My name's Dave S. I'm an alcoholic.
Oh, there you
nice.
go. You've been to meetings before, haven't you?
Couple.
Okay.
My sobriety date is June 16th, 2018.
Okay. Obviously, that's not your first meeting, though, is it?
It's not my first sobriety date.
All right. Well, let's go back to the beginning. So, do you remember taking your first drink?
I remember the date of my first drink.
Wow.
Holy shit.
It was impactful.
It was September 2nd. No, it wasn't. It was September 2nd, 1989. It was my oldest sister's wedding.
Okay.
I had like 2 or 3 vodka cranberries.
And did you feel it?
I think so.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
How old were you?
15.
Oh.
All right. But no big deal, right?
Yeah.
Like any kid.
That it was
any
no big deal.
teenager, blah, 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 right?
And then I think I had one drink a year later at my other sister's wedding, and then I didn't drink or do anything until college.
All right. So drinking wasn't a part of your early teen years.
It was not.
What happened when you get to college?
All hell broke loose.
Okay. Tell us about it.
You don't remember?
When I first got to college, I started drinking occasionally, but it was in that very first semester of college, I had my one and only alcohol-related blackout.
Did it scare you?
Yes, I remember little pieces of things, and I left a bar, turned the wrong way, then came to in the middle of a field, just saw the lights and went towards them, which was weird, which was where town was. And then the next thing I'd remember is just coming to and being sick in the middle of the sidewalk. And then the next thing I remember is being back in my dorm.
So when you got up the next day, were you like, I'm never doing that again?
I don't even remember that much. I just remember those parts of it, and then I don't remember waking up. I'm sure I had a hangover. I probably said that, and I didn't. Back then, I didn't even like the taste of it, so I didn't. And in college, it was all beer, so I didn't drink as much. And what I found in college was pot. Mm-hmm. I loved smoking pot, and then cigarettes. Loved smoking pot and cigarettes, and then drinking just was
Part of the deal.
Part of the deal. Yeah.
So going forward from there, what happens in the rest of your college time? Did it progress?
A lot of drinking, a lot of drinking, a lot of pot smoking.
Did it seem at the time like a normal college existence? Like, in other words, was everybody else doing the same thing anyway?
Yes, but even then, I had probably a good indication that I was doing it more. I was skipping classes. I was just spending as much time as I possibly could, high or drunk. Mm-hmm. It was just not.
Were your peers doing the same?
Somewhat, but they were going to classes. So like they'd get high, I'd go to class. I would get high, lay in bed. I was at the point where I was getting high and not even eating. I was like not even getting hungry, like the munchies and stuff like that. It just didn't happen. I was just laying in bed or going and doing other people's schoolwork to get pot because that was my dealer.
So at this point, do you feel as though this is unmanageable at all? Or
It was definitely unmanageable. I ended up dropping out or withdrawing from school before I could fail out, essentially after 2.5 years of just bad grades and just not doing anything. So I dropped out, came home, and started working a job. And then eventually just started getting panic attacks and stuff while I smoked pot. So I stopped smoking pot for
Now,
years.
when you failed out of school, did your parents ask what the hell was going on with you?
Oh, I had to come clean and basically tell my mother knew. She has a sixth sense like that, like mothers, I think, do.
Was it suggested that you do something about it?
No, it was suggested I stop and just come home and get a job.
Oh, okay. But you
So
did.
I came home, I got a job. Within the first year, I ended up, I think, maybe a year or two, I stopped smoking pot because it would make me paranoid. So then I just drank, and then my drinking became alcoholic. It wasn't every day. It wasn't like it became, but it was when I was going to drink, I was going to drink. I did not want to drive drunk. I have no DWIs. I did not want to drive drunk. So it was just a year to two, it was like 2 or 3 years later that I met my current wife. So it was always like every weekend when it was time to do something, who's driving? So if I was driving, I probably I didn't even bother drinking because it was why bother?
So when you drank heavy. But when
Yes.
you didn't want to drink, you didn't drink.
When I had to be the designated driver.
So if there was going to be consequences,
Yes,
you
I
could
didn't
stop
drive.
yourself.
Well, what's the point?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't go all the way.
If I couldn't go all the way, I wasn't going to bother.
Right,
If I was going to get drunk, I wasn't going to bother. I didn't see the point because it still didn't like the taste of many different things. But
Did
I like
you-
being drunk.
Have you discovered yet, as I did, that, and I was the same way as you with pot, there was a ton of it around, and I would smoke it, but I would get the same panicky, I didn't like it. But if I drank, I really liked it.
So when I was smoking before that, I just really liked it. Then I got panic attacks. Like it felt like acid flashbacks. And I just stopped for a number of years. Probably from like 97 until 2009.
Wow.
I didn't smoke pot at all. And
But you
then
were drinking this whole time.
I was drinking, not like it became. Then it was about 2009 when stuff really, really started. There were periods of time when I would drink, it would get out of control. My wife would say something, and then I would just keep it in check because I didn't know what I didn't know at the time.
Right.
So-
So it is progressive,
Yeah.
right?
And
It
you were drinking
progressed.
mostly situationally, like at parties or any
Yes.
social gatherings.
Yes.
Those times, it really wasn't yet to the point where you're on your own.
No,
Yeah.
not necessarily. But then it did it's kind of hard to pinpoint some of the timeline where it was. There were times when I would drink at home and it would be a thing, but it wasn't like it became later where I was hiding a bottle of vodka so that I could really drink, but be seen just, drinking, quote unquote, normally. But I had
So you're
base.
starting to adjust your behavior to cover the drinking?
Yeah, around it became a later thing. So in 2009, my dad died, and the drinking really started increasing at that point. I was able to be around and present for all of that stuff that goes along with your dad dying, but as soon as wake is over, funeral's over, it was go time. Double fisted with beers, drinking whatever. And then it just kind of continued.
Well, were you dealing with feelings, and you didn't know how to deal with them? I mean, what was the reason what you were drinking?
Alcoholism?
Yeah,
No, I
mean,
know, but I
Yeah.
was just curious if there
Yeah,
was something
that was
that
weighing
It
on
just
you.
was. It was the way I thought I had to deal with things was to drink. I also, like a year earlier, 2008 in August, I quit smoking cigarettes, and even that I did alcoholically. Like my story is lying, cheating, stealing. Now, the cheating part is just cheating people out of things. I didn't cheat on, my wife or anything like that. But it was just cheating people out of things. Whether that's cheating people in my life out of the time that I would spend or the effort I would put into things. But my biggest thing was lying. I am a professional liar.
So whenever it was more convenient,
Whatever
you just
would
make shit up, right?
Whatever would protect what I wanted to do.
Right.
It went back to childhood. I would do lies of omission. I would not ask to do things. I would just do them. And to this day, being the baby of the family, I wasn't monitored as much as I probably could have been. I didn't do anything really troublesome either. I wasn't getting into trouble with things. It was just like going places where I shouldn't go, but not like illegal stuff. So, but like cigarettes were a big thing where I was hiding that from my wife, and the stuff you have to go through to hide that is just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So I finally quit that for good in 2008, and it was. I still say that that was the hardest thing I ever quit, my drinking definitely up. It took an uptick with that because that was my way of loosening the hold and the addiction of the cigarettes was I would just drink to take the edge off. And it definitely increased. And I said, I don't know how anybody quits smoking cigarettes in sobriety. It's insane. That was really, really difficult. And then after all of that, somewhere after my dad died in 2009, I had also been like prescribed a few years like Xanax for panic attacks and stuff like that, because mental illness is part of my story as well. And Xanax was just awesome. Loved it. And because I had that, and I was at a band rehearsal with the band I was playing with at the time, and we're in the garage, and the guys are hanging out, smoking some pot, and I was drinking, and I had also had some Xanax on board. So I'm like, well, I could just smoke some pot because it's not going to be a problem. I have Xanax. I'm not going to have a panic attack.
Right.
What the hell? So, I mean, triple threat. Pot, booze, and Xanax. It was a great time for a while. But then pot really started to play a major part. And I just recently went to an MA meeting, which I didn't even know was in town.
What the hell's MA?
Marijuana Anonymous.
No shit.
Oh,
I've never heard of it.
Me either.
So I actually went to a meeting, and when I was there, I introduced myself. I said, "Hi, my name is Dave. I am a pothead who became an alcoholic because he couldn't get enough pot."
Wow.
Man.
It was like I just wanted to be out of my own head. I wanted to just stop being what I was. However, I could do that. And there was a period of time where I was able to get a lot of pot, and then I couldn't. So what the hell? I can go buy a bottle of vodka and not let anybody know about it.
Yeah. I think for most of us, we are uncomfortable in our own skin. That's our story. And for me, that first buzz of alcohol made me feel like what I thought would be normal. I felt comfortable in my own skin all of a sudden. I'm like, holy shit, no wonder people drink all the time.
Yep.
This is fantastic.
Yep.
And I made it my way of life until it didn't work anymore. Then I was really in trouble.
Yep.
So you're at this point in your life where you're basically hiding a lot of shit, and you're lying about stuff, and you're self-medicating, and you're in a band, and so does it all come to a head?
It all came to a head. So it came to the point in 2013 where I was drinking constantly. I was drinking all day, every day. I was buying the cheapest possible vodka you could imagine.
Did this progression, did it happen? Did it sneak up on you? Like, did
Yeah,
it just...
yeah. But it didn't take long to just be bad.
Crossover.
It's like, do you ever hear the boiling the frog thing?
Yep.
So do you ever hear that, Brett?
No.
If you throw a frog into boiling water, it's going to jump out. But if you put a frog in a pot of room temperature water and turn the heat on, he'll stay there, even though it gets up to a boil, because it's that subtle growth.
Yeah.
That a lot of people have
Goes
this
unnoticed.
with alcohol, and I did too, where you're drinking, and then you're drinking more, and then you're drinking every day, and then you're drinking all day every day, and before you know it, it seems like you're like, holy shit,
In the grasp.
this is a problem, and then sometimes it's too late,
Yeah.
and then you can't stop. So, so Dave, you're in this situation where you're using alcohol to get out of your own skin, and smoking pot still, right?
Yep.
Xanax still.
No, I ended up by towards the end of 2013. It was definitely made aware, from my wife that was not a good thing to be doing.
But did she know the extent of your drinking and
Absolutely
smoking?
not.
So
She knew
you're
the extent.
hiding the whole thing.
She knew kind of the extent of the smoking pot because I would get edgy if I was running what I would consider low, which normal people that smoke pot probably wouldn't because they had probably plenty. She had absolutely no idea the amount of drinking I was doing because I was buying a bottle of vodka just about every day and being able to go through it towards the end. But if I was drinking at home, I was drinking something else, whether it was beer or like rum, like the fancier drinks that I could just drink in the open. So there was what I could drink in the open, but then there was what I was doing to maintain the actual level of booze in my system that I needed to.
And that's really not an uncommon story. You know what I mean? Because we realized, we were just talking about this with another guest a couple episodes ago, that we try to figure out what people are going to see as acceptable, and we show that, and then everything else we do is behind the scenes, so we can look acceptable. So we try to manage.
Absolutely. I used to have the 12-pack or the 18-pack in the fridge, and I would have 2 out of that. And so when my wife would check, I've only had a couple beers.
Right.
What she didn't know was on the way home, I had an entire 6-pack in the car, and then when they would go to bed, I was woodworking. Right, and so that's when the vodka came out.
Yeah, and we think we're pretty good at it.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
A lot of times we're not. People eventually, I think, come to the realization that we're full of shit. So what happened with the progression of yours?
So with that, I was drinking every day. I was, the vodka was just a daily thing, and it came to a head when I was drunk at work. In the past, I had been, for a quick part of this, I was driving home and driving to work. I would drink. I never drank vodka out of a glass. It was literally out of a bottle from under my car seat all the time. So then I was caught at work. I had a situation where my boss had to come down. We had to speak about something. I went away thinking it was going to be handled, but the next thing I know, my boss is coming back to my door, calling me into the hall and saying I had to go to her office with her. No idea. But she smelled booze on me. I'm thinking she can't because it's vodka.
Can't smell vodka, no.
At that point, it's pouring out of my blood, my pores,
yeah.
Because the night before, and for plenty of nights before that, I didn't have enough to get me through the night. So I'm up 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, shaking and feeling just complete sickness. In retrospect, I was going through withdrawal.
Right.
I didn't even think about that.
Did it ever occur to you on the ramp up to this moment of reckoning that you had a severe problem and that maybe you needed to do something about it? Or did it still seem like kind of manageable?
No, by the end, I don't know how many more nights I could have put together without having to do something, because the last night was just horrendous.
Were you isolating because of all this stuff? Did that ever come into play?
I've always isolated.
No.
I am an introvert by nature, and in many ways, I don't generally feel lonely.
Okay.
There's not many situations where I feel lonely, because I'm pretty good being alone at times. I'm sure it drives I know it drives my wife a little bit crazy at times, but it's just what I do. But yeah, isolating in that I wouldn't let anybody in. I didn't want to tell anybody. And that progresses even further past this situation because then I get caught at work. I get sent home. I now have to tell my wife.
Oh,
Well, I actually had to call her from the office and tell her. And it was an absolute shock. So I get home and I happen to have a person in my life who is a local AA person that everybody in this room knows. He's actually my mom's boyfriend. And I knew he was in AA. And he was on vacations where all of us, especially me, is getting drunk, getting high and all this. He would leave. He'd go to meetings or go play golf or do something. And it never really said, I never really acknowledged it or anything. But you can bet your ass as soon as I walked in the door with my wife and she's telling me, you need to deal with this. And she did not help me. It was like everything fell apart right there for her. I didn't see it like that at the time because I was seeing how everything was falling apart for me. So I called this person and I asked for help. I just said, hey, his name's Butch. I said, Butch, it's Dave. I need help. He knew exactly what I needed to do. He basically said, I went into detox for 3 days. He came up. He gave me his big book. He told me to read the page about acceptance and then just read through some stories. Don't worry about reading anything else. And in detox, I barely could read anything. So I do that, and then I go to an inpatient rehab facility where I did what I was supposed to do, but grudgingly.
So did you want sobriety at this point?
I did, but even to this day, a good amount into my sobriety, I don't like authority. I don't like being told what to do. And this rehab was kind of like that. And I fought a lot of it. And I took it out on my wife when she came to visit on a couple of occasions. I wasn't like, if it was like a family day, other people had their families up. I'm getting pissed off about how some kid is acting. The kid was one of the former patients. I'm worried about that and not spending time with my family. She comes up for Valentine's Day, which was also the family visiting day to spend the whole day. And I was an asshole. To this day, it's kind of a joke because we're well past it. But like Valentine's Day is like not a thing because every year
it's a dark day.
Every year I apologize for. I'm sorry I've ruined 2014 Valentine's Day 2014 because it was just I was an asshole.
I can't imagine being inpatient like that. And it's classic, right? There's group therapy, and being the personality type that you are, that had to be hell. Like having to share.
In some way, in a lot of ways, it was. But I was there to take it seriously, and what I started doing was perseverating on the people that were not there to walk the walk. They were there. They were telling all their drug and boozing stories, and there were a few of us that were not. So, but again, I was focused on everybody else but me. I did what I needed to do. I got what I needed to get out of it, and I ended up coming out after 26 days because some weird thing happened with how things were getting paid for, and like I wasn't informed of a certain thing that was happening, and I took a big issue with it. And I didn't want to spend I got on a Friday. They wanted me to stay till Monday. But at the time, they didn't do jack shit for us on the weekends. It was,
right, yeah.
I mean, one day they gave, one Saturday while I was there, it was like a movie night, and they had us watch This Is the End. The whole opening sequence.
It's all booze and drugs.
The whole opening sequence is a table full of every drug imaginable. So
Yeah, I've heard that from people before that on the weekends some facilities kind of phone it in. When the big boss is gone and the weekend people come in, it's kind of like,
And I caused enough of a stink where I did talk with. They put me into contact with somebody there, and they did respect my wish to get out on that Friday. But again, I was still focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah. Did you have a plan when you got out?
Oh yeah, AA like crazy.
No.
And I did it, and I did it for a while. I mean, I did 90 and 90. I was getting up to go to a 7:00 meeting so that I could get to work.
Outpatient too, or no?
No outpatient. I did go to therapy, like one-on-one with a therapist, and she was a member of AA and other organizations.
So she understood the whole addiction thing. Good. So is your mind changing at this point? You got to rehab, doing your 90 and 90?
It is. However, in rehab, one of the things they had us do was to plan your relapse, as if it made sense at the time, but I planned my relapse to a T.
Okay.
I said I would smoke pot because I knew what the withdrawal from booze was like, and I was not going to plan that because it sucked. And I just knew that, I personally know that that marijuana is addictive. However, I also know that the withdrawal from that is not like booze or
it's
other
not a
drugs.
physical withdrawal.
It's bad enough, but it's not what booze was. So, and eventually, after a few years, I started smoking pot. Lying about it. Nobody knew except the guy I was getting my pot from.
So are you in AA, attending meetings, working steps?
I was still going to meetings. One of the things I would do, however, was either I'd go to the meeting and I'd be high because I was using that as an opportunity to get out of the house to go get high. Or I'd sit in the parking lot.
And not going to the meeting?
Not going to the meeting.
So how did you justify this in your mind? Was it just denial? Or were you just telling yourself, look, as long as I don't drink booze, I'll be okay?
Yes. And I just didn't think I'd get found out. Okay. But I'm not as smart or as sly as I like to believe I am in my head. And I got caught.
So, but besides getting caught, even just in your own mind, are you thinking to yourself, this is not what being sober is?
Oh, yeah.
Lying and hiding. And so you knew that.
Oh, yeah.
But did you feel, well, this is as good as I'm going to be?
I don't even really know what I was thinking at the time. It's just what I wanted to do, and that was what was most important to me.
Okay.
So I did it. I got caught. I quit again.
Now, when you got caught by
my wife.
Okay, and she's putting her foot down.
Her biggest deal was the lying about it.
Yeah.
It would have been one thing had
trust in a marriage is
had I told her about it. But then so that time it was, if you lie about this again, I'm going to kick you out of the house. So another couple years, I'm not even sure of the time frame. It doesn't really matter. But it happened again. I basically had a string of lies come falling apart.
Well, let me ask you this. So you get caught that first time. Do you stop?
I did.
And then, so the next time you're about to smoke pot, whatever it was, months, a year later, whatever, are you thinking, what the fuck am I doing?
No, I'm thinking this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it.
So you're not worried about the consequences. Well, you are, but you're thinking I can get away with this.
I think about the consequences, but I just don't know if I actually believed I would get kicked out.
Okay.
Or on some level, I just didn't think I'd get caught again.
Yeah.
Because I'm so smart.
But like deep in your gut, are you questioning your own sanity at this point? Here I am again.
I haven't questioned my own sanity since birth, I think. So, yeah, I mean, I just do it.
Now, is AA going on this whole time?
Yes, I would go.
Ooh.
And one of the things I would do is either go and be high in the meeting. And like, I'm sure people realized it. No one ever said anything to me, but I'm sure people realized it. But being who I am, I'm not sure if you realize this, but I'm not exactly the most approachable person. So
No, David, stop.
That may have been a bit of a cover too.
Sure.
That may have covered it a little bit.
Just in the background.
But the other thing I would do would be to go to the location of the meeting, sit in my vehicle in the parking lot.
Because you knew that they thought that's where you were. It's okay.
And tracking software on phones would show that I'm at that location.
Do you at the time, or just like looking back now, do you see the absurdity of that?
Of course I do.
Yeah, I mean it's so. But at the time we don't see it.
No,
we're like, this is cool. This is okay.
Yeah,
this isn't that abnormal. This is manageable.
I wanted to get high, so I was going to get high.
Yeah,
and I had to continue lying to protect all of that.
Keep the authority away.
Because of all of my character defects and the selfishness, the self-centered, which I have been forever. I lied to my parents about all sorts of things. I mean, it's embarrassing to say, but I literally sucked my thumb until the age of 18 when I started smoking cigarettes. And I lied about that as a kid. It was a couple of years after doing like my fourth step that I realized, oh my God, I lied about that when I was a kid as well. I have been lying about that, about where I would ride my bike.
It just comes naturally.
I stole money at the age of like, I remember it. I don't know how old I was. I was probably like 6 or 7 years old. I remember stealing $10 from my sister's room as if she wouldn't know she was missing $10. This was like 1983.
It's a lot of money for a kid.
It's like
right?
1983 or 1984. And it was, and then I put it in my like piggy bank, like
smart.
where I was going to get, where I didn't have that money.
Yeah.
So I got caught.
I used to steal change from my mother's purse.
Yeah.
And then I stole cigarettes from my mother's purse. And then my brother started stealing her Darvon from her purse.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So, it's not uncommon. I think I don't know what the draw is for us with that shit. But there is a definite draw.
I'll tell you one thing.
With that addictive
and this
personality.
happens with these podcasts and hearing people's stories.
Yeah.
I'm about to go back on a journey to a 4-step. Because you are telling my story to a T, and I don't even, when I originally went through this, I
you didn't think of it.
I haven't thought of it. And this is shaking me, actually.
Yeah. So,
really cool.
So, Dave, are you working the steps while you're smoking pot?
No, I did all of that. And then I did all of that before.
Okay.
Now, whether I did it thoroughly, like we're told, probably not. So July 16th of 2018 comes along, and I'm having what I think is a normal day. Took my kids to swim lessons, and I bring them home. My wife had been working on painting a bathroom. And in the process of painting the bathroom, she's thinking, as one will when you're doing that type of job, she starts thinking about all of these different stories I've told about a certain situation that related to my dealer, actually. And a lot of things just fell into place. And I was just done. So I get home, and she asked me to go upstairs. I need you to come upstairs. Basically. So I go upstairs, and she tells me she knows what I've been doing. I admit it. And true to her word, you have to leave the house, and you have to go downstairs and tell your kids.
Oh, hell.
Oh, God.
Oh, Jesus.
So, last night we were at a meeting about turning points, and that was definitely the turning point. At that point, I had to go and spend a couple nights with my mother. I spent a night with my sponsor, and having to tell all these people at this point what's up was brutal, but necessary as part of that turning point. Last night I was going to say, the other turning points I had in my sobriety were like being on the highway, getting off the exit, but getting right back on that. You know how you can keep going straight instead of turning off the exit. You go straight and get back on the on-ramp. That's kind of what those turning points were. This turning point was real. All those lies came down. I ended up having to live with a guy that's in the program around here who everybody knows. His name is Dick. I'm sure he'll be on here in the future. I lived with him for 3 weeks. And I was going to the house during the day when my wife was at work so that somebody was there with my kids. And, then I'm showing up and doing what I need to do. And 3 weeks goes by and I'm back in the house and I'm not trusted or not. But what it came down to for me was, even at that time I was in a band. The band I was in, while I was secretly smoking pot, we'd be at rehearsals. We'd go out into there's like a common area, like a workshop where at the drummer's house, and all these guys were smoking pot. I wasn't smoking pot with them. I wasn't going to let anybody know.
So you were actively hiding your smoking pot, even from people that were smoking pot.
Yes.
That is fucking crazy.
That is fucking crazy. But there's an element of superiority there in my brain.
You're getting away with it.
I'm getting away with it, but I couldn't let anybody in. If I let anybody in, they might say something. So I had one person at the time that knew I was smoking pot, and that person was definitely not right. But that's a completely separate issue.
So this unmanageability is just, you're fucking living in it. You're
Absolutely.
living, it's crazy. And so I remember when this happened, and I remember you started your sobriety date over again.
Oh, yeah.
And now this whole time you're smoking pot, though, you don't want to drink. So you at least know that.
No,
right?
I didn't want to drink. It just didn't come. I didn't want to. I didn't want to drink because I was at least smart enough and had enough presence of mind to know I didn't want to withdraw.
That misery again.
I didn't want to quit drinking again. So I had that going for me. But this situation was probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because I finally decided, hey, as my sponsor will always say, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Right.
And everything changed then. Or at least everything
finally
began.
surrendered completely. Right?
I surrendered. I really had to change people, places, and things. That's where you and I really started. I really met you, Mark, by coming over here and hanging out with you and Mike R. And
yeah.
So I quit the band I was in. And one of the guys in that band I've known since high school. He's like my best friend in the world, pretty much. And I basically had to cut him off for a period of time. I just could not do stuff with him. And it wasn't anything he did. It was me not being able to be around
Right. It's
things.
all people, places, and things, right?
All people, places, and things.
Yeah.
So I just had to change all of that. And by changing all of that and developing a band with other people that are in the
Sober
program.
people, yeah.
With sober people.
Yeah, so I actually discussed it before you came on, that we were in a sober band together.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
all
and
right,
I
cool.
told him to go to ponytailjames.com.
There you go.
Oh, boy.
Shameless self-promotion.
Shameless plug, yeah.
So being in that has been, it's been part of this life-changing experience. I went through the steps again with my sponsor. I treated smoking pot as if I had drunk again. So
Right, it was a relapse.
it was a relapse.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that still sticks in my head, and it bothers me, but I now know the guy is just a kook. But I remember being at one of the first meetings back, and I was saying, I'm coming back. And everybody, welcome back, blah, blah, blah. This one guy went off on a tirade about, he's not coming back, he didn't drink, and blah, blah, blah. It was pot. This is non-issue, outside issue. Okay. Unfortunately, drugs are part of my story, and they're part about 75% of everybody's story in the rooms.
Agreed.
So it's time to get over it. And if you can't, too bad. I'm going to talk about it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my thing is, if it's a mind-altering substance,
Right.
You're coming back.
Right.
So.
And my sponsor told me to do that. So, and as I said, I was full in. I'm just full in. I did what I needed to. I did what I was told to do. I did that some before, but this time I did it all. I changed people, places, things. I did the steps again. I was going to meetings again. I had flopped around to different home groups. I went back to my original home group. It's still my home group.
Right. So you basically started fixing all these half measures.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And surrendering.
Yes.
And, I guess you lived for a while in a half measure world, right?
Hell yeah.
And it was all the same bullshit was there, just without the booze. Mm-hmm. And that's been everybody's experience that we've ever talked to is they put the drink down, but the drink alcohol was but a symptom, And until the real work begins, it's not going to change, So either you can be alcohol free and miserable and fucked up, or you can do the work and start to change, and have that psychic change. And that's what happened with you.
Yeah.
And how has your world changed since that point?
All of my relationships are better. I've been able to rebuild a certain level of trust with my wife, which is pretty much the most important thing that I can have at this time. I don't think on a daily basis she thinks that I'm using in any way. Overall, my general attitude has changed about things, but I'm still me.
Well, that's okay.
We never lose it.
Yeah, I mean, that's
still,
okay.
no.
We are all flawed.
We're humans.
Yeah.
Or we're the way we are, and that's, but I think, it's progress, not perfection anyway, and perfection is unattainable.
For me...
And what is perfection? You know what I mean?
For me, the part of the promises that has always stuck out, I remember being in rehab, but it really, really sticks with me, is and I kind of think about this one line as if it's being yelled from the top of a mountain in Tibet. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us.
Yes.
That part has always hit me. That's like the heart of everything for me. I still do not react like I should in a lot of situations, but I do handle a lot of situations a lot better than I did.
Plus, your ability to figure out how to handle things,
and see
at least
through.
mine, has changed a lot. And I've learned that my initial reaction is probably not a good starting point for action. That I've got to take a step back, and I've got to think about it. I've got to talk to somebody about it. I've got to talk to my higher power about it and maybe wait for an answer. All that stuff that I never did before. Boy, my life got a lot more serene.
And that's the gift we receive.
Yeah.
Yeah, the higher power part of that is still my biggest struggle. I grew up Catholic. I'm still Catholic. I, in fact, went to church today for a very long mass, which I did not expect, but
Nor enjoy.
parts of it I enjoyed, but
Okay.
it was okay.
Well, that's good. So, let me ask you about that then. So it's a God of your understanding, right?
I like to quote my sponsor. It's a God of that I don't understand, basically.
Right.
And I don't have to.
Right.
I have to work towards believing something. Some days, I'm all in. There's a lot more days where I'm not, or I just don't.
But can you feel your higher power working in your life ever? Like, do things happen and you're like, holy shit?
Yes, they do. But I generally get more of the higher power sense in the rooms, in the group of people.
Well, I think a lot of people do.
And the people in my life as well. I struggle with the God thing. I say it when it comes up in meetings. If I get called on, I listen to people talk, and I am very envious of the people that have that unflinching faith in God, a higher power, Jesus, Buddha.
It's always been my
Whoever.
contention that, like you said, a God I don't understand.
Yeah.
That God is not going to be ever understood intellectually, that you can explain it to someone and they'll understand what you're saying. But it's experienced by us all. And that's where I think the belief comes, only from experience. Nobody can tell me, and I can't tell anybody. But I do have an experience with it, and that's where my understanding is. And I've gotten to the point in my life where I'm like, that's never going to change. I got to be open to it. I got to experience it, and I can interact with it if I do that, But as far as understanding it, beyond me,
Yeah.
So, anyways, Dave, let me ask you one last question. What words of wisdom would you have for somebody who was either contemplating trying to get sober or is new to sobriety?
Great question.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you're always searching for that one perfect thing to say,
yeah,
right?
and you don't want to sound canned either.
Yeah. Well, my thing was always one day at a time. Just fucking one day at a time and keep coming back. That's it,
Mine is, and I have worked with people. I have a sponsee who has remained sober for a number of years. I have a new sponsee who I'm working with, and it really comes down to get to the meetings, however you need to. But you need to work the program. You need to get in. And what I'll say when new people are coming in or coming back, I just reiterate that people, places, and things, because that's what it took for me. People, places, and things were such a trigger and such a it just took me out.
Yeah, well,
It just took me out.
I think a lot of it is we are defenseless, especially early in sobriety. When we get put in those same people, places, and things that we used or drank with, we're fucking defenseless.
Especially against our brain.
Yeah, against ourselves. So, Dave, thanks so much for coming in and telling us your story and your perspectives. And until next episode, I'm Mark.
I'm going to do another 4-step, and I'm Brett.
I won't be here next time, but I'm Dave.
As we wrap up another episode of the Glum Lot Podcast, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you who tuned in today. Navigating the path to recovery from alcohol and other substances is a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and self-discovery. Remember, we're not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous, but we're here to provide a safe space for open conversations about the complexities of recovery. Your stories, courage, and resilience inspire us and our listeners alike. If you or someone you know is on the transformative journey, know that you're not alone. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse facets of recovery. Until then, stay strong, stay connected, and remember that each day is a step towards a brighter, sober tomorrow. Thank you for being part of the Glum Lot community.